welcome to my tutoring video. Today we are doing history. I have a memo and a history paper here, specifically a grade 8 social science history paper 2 paper. So today I'm going to be teaching you how to read through a history paper and answer the questions when doing it. So not just content wise, but how to actually answer a history paper. So first up is always read the instructions. This page, this beautiful page over here. Always make sure to read it. This tells you basically what type of question it's going to have. This is also very important because it tells you that, there's contextual questions and there's longer questions, but the contextual questions will always be related to the longer questions. That makes sense. I'll explain further. But always read your instructions, always leave a little space between your answers for anyone moderating and marking. This makes marking it a lot easier. I speak as someone who marks summer papers for impact schools. So when we look at a paper, we have to read through the whole paper first. This isn't just to get familiar with the questions. It's to see what questions are related. Where can we find answers? So I'm not going to read through the whole paper, but you'd want to read through every question on every paper, every text, all of it. That's why for history you get that reading time. That reading time is crucial. Always use your reading time. Read everything, read it carefully, and read it twice if need be. Okay, this is always going to give you hints or tell you, question 1.1.1 is similar content to question 3.2.5. How are they related? Are they maybe on the same person? Is it maybe giving an answer to something specific? We don't know. That's why it's important to read. Okay, so we're going to do the first questions. We're going to do multiple choice. This is specifically on the Ashanti Kingdom and World War I. Okay, and anything in between. So I have the memo here with me because I need the memo to check myself, but I should know the content because I tutor the content. Okay, so multiple choice questions. You have 4 options, one of them is correct. Okay, and the questions can also be which one is not correct, so make sure you always read carefully. Sometimes you can get a multiple choice or a true or false and it says which one is not correct. If so, correct it or spot the incorrect answer. Especially if you take history further on, you might get more questions like that where you have to give the correct terminology, the correct date, the correct person, anything similar. So the first question is, the Ashanti Kingdom became most powerful because it controlled the blank trade. Our options are A, gold, B, slave, C, salt, D, spice. So if I don't know the answer to this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the process of elimination. Alright, look at the paper, focus. As you can tell, I've already started doing here. But now we look at what the words are, what the actual words are. So the question is the most powerful. So I would underline that. The most powerful, okay, but why? Why are they the most powerful? Okay, this is where we can use some geography. This is why geography is also important. If you take geography or remember any history before grade 8, you know that, or even now modern day knowledge, you know that India is very famous for its spices. So that already tells you it's not D. They're not famous or most powerful because of D, spices. Okay, if you also remember that during the Ashanti Kingdom, there was a slave trade happening, but if you remember specifically the Ashanti Kingdom, that there was no slave trade, there was no slave trade happening like within that group yet. It depends on what history your history textbook says. I know that ours says that for history, the Ashanti Kingdom was not involved with the slave trade. I could be wrong. I probably am wrong. Anyway, so then we know that B isn't the slave trade. We know that there was slave trade happening around that time, but we know that specifically in this question that they were not most powerful because of slave trade, because that was the Europeans. Then we have A and C, gold and salt. Okay, we also know that salt, that would have been from like the Himalayan salt. I don't know about that, but salt doesn't make sense. Okay, this is South Africa we're talking about, or the African continent we're talking about. You're more likely to get salt by the coastal areas. Okay, the Ashanti could have been near it. I don't know the geography specifically of where they were, but they definitely weren't most powerful because of salt. That leaves us with A, gold. Okay, which is true, it is gold. I've dropped the paper. I've got the paper. Okay, then we go on to the next one. So, in the 1890s, the Ashanti king began to reunite the Ashanti kingdom. A. Jan Asutwa, okay. B. Premef II, C. Premef I, or D. Oseti Tutu. So this one all tells us already that there was reuniting happening, and this was an Ashanti king. That already tells us that the king is a male. So that already takes out B and C. Oh, sorry, A and B. Ya Aswata is a woman, and Premef II is the second. So that tells us that they are the second person in line. So they weren't the first to do this reuniting. So that takes it out. So then that leaves us with Premef I and Oseti Tutu. Okay, so if we know our dates well, this is why history is always important date-wise. Dates tell us a lot. Dates also little key cheat sheets. If you can put a date with a person like 1890s or Oseti Tutu, for example, that's already going to help you a lot. Even if you just have a brisk idea of what happened, knowing the date and who was the main person at the time already helps you a lot when writing paragraph questions, essay questions, answering contextual questions, and longer questions. So in this case, we know that Oseti Tutu was the first. He was the original person, the original king. So that tells us that, okay, the answer's not D, which leaves us with Premef I. That they were the first kings to try and reunite the kingdom. Then we go on to the next question. The Ashanti kingdom became part of a blank colony. Okay, in history we learn a lot about colonies, what country took over what parts of Africa and stuff. So this is also where you could possibly look in the paper for more answers. Is there something in multiple choice, or matching columns, or fill in the blank? Is there maybe it's in something in true or false, or picking the correct term? Could there even be a picture that tells us something? This picture specifically could tell us a lot. And then we check, maybe there's another picture or a source that we can use. See here we have another source. Sources and pictures are very important because they can tell us a lot. So if I didn't know the answer, okay, our options are A, Belgium, B, French, C, Portuguese, and D, British. If I didn't know the Ashanti Kingdom and I didn't know that the British were attacking them and eventually they became a colony, I would refer to the image. I'm going to try show the image as best as I can. There we go, the image. So here we have a German Chancellor, Bismarck, and he is dividing the African continents among the European leaders at the Berlin Conference. Okay, so we can see that Africa is being split up, and it's a German Chancellor. So then if we know who was all at the Berlin Conference, we know that there was France, there was Italy, there was Portugal, I think, definitely the British. Then we can, based on process of elimination, we can say, okay, they became part of a D, British colony. And I am correct. I'm checking the memo as well. I need to check myself as well to make sure I'm giving the correct answers. Okay, then we get the most important go-betweens between the Ashanti and European traders were the blank. A, Fante, B, Arabs, C, Elimina, and D, Akan. Okay, I actually have no idea about this part. I haven't covered that content yet with my little students. So I'm going to use the memo for this. So 1.1.4, it says A, Fante. Okay, if you know your trades well, this will also help. What helps really